What is going on? What is going on? It's your girl, Melba Pearson, Melba for Miami, Melba for Justice, also known as the Resident Legal Diva. And it's time for another Mondays with Melba. We have an action packed episode today because we've got Ashley Gantt, who is running for Florida State House in District 109. And I'm so excited for you to meet her because number one, I've been knowing her from like back in the day. I have her career, and I am so like excited for y'all to get to know her. So Ashley, welcome to Mondays with Melba.
Thank you so much, Melba. It is such a pleasure to be here. I met you when I was a baby law student, and I was like looking up to all the amazing, beautiful Black women lawyers. I'm like, one day I'm going to be like them. And so it's such an honor to be here talking to you and to be, I'm still a baby lawyer in my head when it comes to like how much I revere and respect you. So just to be here as your colleague, that is such an honor for me.
Hi, mama, listen. I'm just proud of you because this journey that you've been on and that you are embarking on is a very heavy one and not for the faint of heart. So I commend you for going there. But let's get right into it because I want to make sure everybody knows about you. So first off, we have to talk about Auntie Fabulosity, our new Supreme Court Justice, Ketanji Brown Jackson. How do you feel? Because I know how I feel. How do you feel? How has this impacted you personally and professionally?
Okay, so it wasn't until high school that I wanted to be a lawyer since I was 9 years old. But it wasn't until high school that I actually met a Black woman lawyer. And so from 9 to, adulthood, just researching what it was like to be a lawyer and then meeting different Black women attorneys. Not having a Black woman on the Supreme Court, it was just like always a source of like, oh, let me roll my eyes. But to get a sister from Miami that was a public defender to be our first Black woman, like when I was watching, so I watched the confirmation hearings, and like most of us, I was yelling and screaming at my TV. Thank God I work from home majority of the time, so I I could scream indiscriminately. And I was like screaming and yelling, and I was just like, this is a master class in poise
Mm-hmm.
and responding accordingly under pressure. So I took a lot of lessons because I mean, as a lawyer, as a trial lawyer especially, we know how it is to moderate our responses and our reactions. Sometimes you can't really moderate certain things when it's something that's literally shocking to the conscience. But watching her under that immense amount of pressure was just mind blowing for me. And for her to be confirmed and be confirmed by the first woman who is a Black woman vice president, like I was sitting here with chills, and it was such an immense moment of joy. And just knowing how much representation matters. So for me, I knew I wanted to be a lawyer. Whatever detours came in life, I knew I wanted to be a lawyer. But for little girls who are like, I don't know, maybe, well, I've never seen anyone. Like, that's why I think it's so important to always go to schools and to talk to kids at schools, because you don't know who they don't know. And representation might change a kid's life. And so seeing her, being that she's from Miami, that she was, rocking her sister locks, like, it was a beautiful moment. It was a beautiful moment because a lot of people don't know, but Black women attorneys are only 2% of attorneys in the entire country. So we're this really small percentage. And when we show up, we show up.
Mm-hmm.
And it was in the different groups, lawyer groups. I especially love the conversation in our Black women lawyer groups, where we were just like, it was this collective sense of like, oh my gosh, like I see myself, like my daughter, I don't have any kids, but like my future kids, they won't have to be in a world where they don't see someone that looks like them. For my nieces, one of my nieces wants to be a judge. So for her to be able to see that, it was just mind blowing. It was amazing. I mean, I don't think there will be any words that can actually convey that sense of pride.
Exactly, 110%. Because for me, it was just to see what she overcame just to get to that point, just even get in the room of being able to be in a hearing situation where you're even being considered, right? And to have gone through that multiple times because she was confirmed 3 prior times before. And
Right.
it's now, of course, they decided to show out because we all know.
Right.
But just to see her, like you said, the poise, the strength, and you saw at certain moments, you saw the eyes where we're like, girl, yeah, I
Mhm.
know what you're feeling right now. But she held it together, stayed on message. And I think she's going to do an amazing job on the Supreme Court and for our country and for just the law as a whole. I mean, for
Right.
all the reasons you listed.
Right.
So pivoting from her, let's talk about you. So tell everyone a little bit about, you mentioned you wanted to be a lawyer since you were 9 years old. So, what's been your path in life? What kind of law are you practicing? And, why do you want to run for office at this point? And specifically for this particular office?
Okay. So I am from Miami, so I'm a homegrown Miami girl, and I've always wanted to be a lawyer. And my mom told me, I thought it was like this little tiff that I had with my dad, where I was going back and forth with him, and he was like, "You need to be a lawyer." But my mom said that I read some book when I was probably like 5 or something. So in my head, it was 9, but I mentioned it when I was 5, and so at 9, I solidified, that I wanted to be a lawyer. So I went to Carroll City. I went to the law magnet. I was committed to this path. And then I went to the University of Florida. So my final year in school, I was super involved on campus. I was all up in the Black Student Union. I am a Florida Cicerone, that's an ambassador for the university. So I was just, involved in different organizations. I love community service. That's always been who I am. So my last year of school, I got an email from Teach for America. And they were like, "Hey, we're having an informational session. Come join us and check us out." I was like, "Sure." So I went and I was just like, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing." And my rationale was I was studying for the LSAT. I was gearing up to take the LSAT. And after that meeting, I was like, law school isn't going anywhere. I think I could do that. It's only 2 years. I think I can do this.
Mhm.
So I ended up applying to Teach for America. I was accepted, and little did I know. So, Teach for America gives you a list of all the places that you can be assigned to as a core member. And for those who don't know what Teach for America is, it's national community service where college graduates go into different schools around the country, and you teach for at minimum of 2 years doing community service. So they have a list of the sites, and I was like, okay, I want to teach little Black kids. Like I want to, that's who I want to teach. And so I didn't know that if you put Mississippi on your list anywhere, so they gave you 3 tiers. Tier 1 was like, this, you better send me here. Tier 2 was like, I wouldn't mind if you send me here. Tier 3 was like, no, please do not send me there. And people usually put Mississippi Delta in number 3. So I
Mhm.
actually put it in the last selection of my first group. And
Uh-oh.
don't you know, they were like, "Oh my God, somebody chose Mississippi." Because usually when people choose it, when people are assigned to Mississippi, they never choose it. They're like, "I don't know why they sent me here." So I was like, "Well, I guess I'm going to Mississippi." So I lived in Mississippi for 2 years in rural Mississippi. The county that I lived in was a beautiful experience. It was a beautiful experience. I met some of the most amazing people that I've ever met. Some of my students, one of my students just reached out to me. He was like, "Oh my God, Miss Gantt, call me." I was like, "Baby, I'm so busy. I'll call, I'll call you in September. Like, not right now." But I did my 2 years there, and the county that I lived in was so small. It was about 3,000 people, and there was not one single stoplight in the entire county that I lived in.
Wow.
So it was crazy. So on to the east and west of me were actual like bigger cities.
Mhm.
And it took 30 minutes to get to either one. And I would be passing cotton fields, soybean fields, corn fields, like just miles and miles and miles. And I spent my 2 years there. Then I came back home, and I was like, law school still isn't going anywhere. I still want to teach. It was still in me. So I actually taught at my alma mater, Carroll City, and I taught with some of my old teachers, which was really fun. And
Nice.
I taught there for a couple years, and I taught at Alapata Middle. And
Mhm.
at Alabama Middle, my second year teaching there is when I started law school. So I started law school my last year of teaching, and I went to Nova for law school. So I got to a point in my 20s. I was like, I need to do this now. Like, this is my dream. I know I love teaching. I love my, but am I going to just let my dream go because I'm good at this? I got to at least try.
Mhm.
So I got into Nova's evening program, and I kept saying, why am I going to school part time? Which was really not part time. It was just evening because we only had one less class than the full time students.
Ouch.
And I was like, why am I doing this? And after after I completed my first year, I went full time. I was able to stop teaching, went full time, becoming a public defender after that. So I was a public defender in Broward. I would have been a public defender lifer, but some life circumstances happened, and I was like, oh, I need to like make a little more money. So I went to private practice,
Mhm.
and I practiced insurance defense. And for a very, very short stint, I did family and immigration. And I knew very quickly when I did immigration, um, I was a public defender for like over 2 years at that point, right? Or before I went to immigration. And I had a couple times where I like wanted to cry in court, but for the most part, like I was able to, keep it together. It was almost every single time I went to court and when I was doing immigration law that I wanted to cry
Why
because
was
I c- I think it's just an unjust system, that we have these imaginary lines and boundaries that we've created, that we tell people, like when they label people illegal, like human beings cannot be illegal.
that?
And I got a firsthand and bird's eye view of, like, one day I walked into court and there was literally a 6-year-old standing at the defendant or the respondent's table by himself, waiting for his appointed attorney. And I was like, this is a
Oh.
child. It was just, it felt so wrong to me. And I was just like, I sobbed several times when I was practicing immigration law. I was like, I'm not emotionally capable of handling this. Like, I am going to advocate for reforms for immigration, and do things on the other side, but I like, for me, I couldn't do it. Like, some people, they just can't do family law. Like, family law is, off the table for them, but I can do it. And so I just recognized that for me, I couldn't do immigration law.
And that's very important because many times people will stay in a particular field and it's draining you mentally and emotionally, and you're not able to even bring your best self to work to accomplish the mission of the job. So if the mission being, I want to make sure that this person is able to stay in this country legally, and you can't even get your mind around what's happening because it's just causing you so much angst, you're
Right.
not doing the client any favors, and you're certainly not doing yourself any favors. So that's huge that you're able to recognize that and pivot and find something that was a better match where you can really make a difference. So yeah, that's
Right. So I had this one client, and this is why in my own practice, so after I did some insurance defense and I was just like, this is not for me. Like, I became a lawyer to help people. Like, where does my community need me and my unique special set of skills? So last year in April, I opened up my own firm. It's called Gantt Legacy Law. And
woohoo.
I actually turned one on the 20th of this month. So next Wednesday. It's
Yay.
crazy because I'm like, oh my God, I did it for a whole year. I'm still here.
And you're still here. You're still
No, I'm like, oh my gosh. So I chose criminal defense, estate planning, and probate. And I think that those three areas are we're very much in need of representation. And I really believe in cultural competency and cultural understanding of, like, not to say that I can't have clients from diverse backgrounds, but sometimes in certain situations, like, your client may communicate a certain way and like I can understand them a lot more, or they might be more open. And so if they don't have an opportunity to have an attorney where they can feel, comfortable enough, they either would lack the representation, and who does that benefit? So that's the reason why I chose those three areas. And for criminal in particular, when I was practicing immigration law, one of my clients, she had a criminal case that subjected her to removal. And she was like, we tried to get it, vacated, and we exhausted all options. And so the court, and I went in court, and I was just like, I literally went in court and threw whatever at the wall, and I was like, whatever sticks, like
Yep. Mm-hmm.
whatever sticks. And the judge was like, that's just a uh what is it? I can't remember the word she used, but she was just like, that's not basically a binding opinion, right? Um, and I was like, I know, Judge. Like,
but I'm going to try anyway for my client.
I'm still gonna say it. I'm still gonna lay this record. Like, you can deny everything I say, but I'm gonna say it.
Yeah.
And she was just like, her hands were tied, and I understood. I prepared my client for that, and she was just like, the criminal attorney that she had did not inform her, like her immigration status was not discussed. And so she was like, I felt pressured to take this plea. I didn't want to take it, but I went ahead. My attorney said, all these things. And I'm like, that's not an uncommon story when it comes to criminal defense. So, it made me even more committed to going back to my first roots, being a public defender and specializing in criminal defense. And now I'm actually carving out a specialty, a niche area in criminal defense with mental health cases.
Awesome.
I saw the need as a public defender. So I really enjoyed my mental health clients because it was this I got this immense feeling like, man, I'm really helping them. I'm really helping their family. And it's a lot. Those cases are a lot. They are, sometimes emotionally draining, where you have to set firm boundaries. But when you get someone and, you've helped them create a plan with meds or medications that, suits them, that they are able to feel like themselves again, like, that's so rewarding. And I want to be able to help families because we see, everybody has been impacted by the pandemic in our mental health, right?
Absolutely.
So imagine people who are a lot more vulnerable and don't have the words to describe and try to self-medicate. And so that's why I decided to create, and I'm still creating, like, this niche area in criminal defense.
That is awesome because, by the way, like, having been a former prosecutor, having been a prosecutor, I'm no former prosecutor, but like mental health, I have seen so many attorneys not want to deal with mental health cases. It's too much drama. It's not easy to communicate. You have to take more time on those cases. Mm-hmm. So to seek that out as a niche area is very telling because not everybody can do that. And I really want to take all of that interesting work that you're doing and sort of pivot to why now in running for office. I mean, you're building this new firm, you're helping in so many ways. What do you think you can be able to accomplish in Tallahassee?
Ooh, listen, why now, right? So I've been avoiding the path of running. Like, no, I'm good over here. I'm good over here. This past legislative session and all of the bills that were introduced that disenfranchise Floridians, that, some of them are smoke screens for, culture wars when we have real issues. People are not able to afford where they're living. People's rents are being raised to the point where they have to move, they have to uproot their lives and move miles and miles. Like, forget Broward. Let's talk about like more into Central Florida or even out of Florida, or consolidate and live with family members. And so I saw, just the lack of representation for District 109. So I grew up all up and through 109, right? I learned to swim at Arcola Pool. My aunt, my grandmother, my other aunt, like, they all lived throughout 109. Like, that's pretty much where I grew up, right?
Oh, wait. So wait, let me stop you there. What are the boundaries for 109, just so folks get a better sense?
Okay, so I wrote this down in my book. So 109, I'll give the cities because it's kind of like a zigzag depending on what avenue. So I start from Biscayne Boulevard on the west side up over into Overtown. So I think it's southeast. You know, I wrote this down. I'm so mad that I don't have it right now, but I think it's
So
First
basically, Overtown, like, yes, you start.
Overtown, and then I go into Liberty City, the Alapata area, and then I go into West Little River, where Miami-Dade North is, and I go up to Opelika, and the boundary stops at 151st Street. So Opelika includes the airport, and that's how far west it goes. So some of Hialeah is included when you're talking about avenues, but it's literally like zigzagged on how they do it. So when we come up from Overtown, I have some parts of 7th Avenue, and then we go west, and then it goes north, like different avenues, like random avenues at different streets. So it's a zigzag map, but for the most part, it's Overtown, Liberty City, the Alapata area, West Little River, Brownsville, up into Opelika. So the prior boundaries included a lot of Midtown and into Miami Gardens, but those were taken out with the redistricting.
That's the thing, and that's the thing that everybody got to keep be aware of, because what may be your district today could change, when the next redistricting cycle comes around. And they're real creative with the way they draw the maps, as folks may have noticed. Today in Florida, it came out that the governor is going to draw the map himself.
How?
By the way, folks, that's not normal. Okay.
That is not normal. I posted, I was like, if you have not been alarmed, this should set off every single bell ringer, everything in your mind, in your family's mind. Like, this is not okay. And when we look at let's just look at the amendment for voters, right? How the voters overwhelmingly supported returning citizens who have felony convictions to be given or restored their right to vote. We said, yes, this is what we want. We want our community members to also participate in a democratic process, to then have the legislature find this loophole. And of course, it was litigated. And this is always preach to my friends: judges matters. Judges matter. And when we talk about electing local judges, when we talk about, electing officials or congressmen and congresswomen who will approve the judges on a federal level, we have to be very cognizant that all of these actions or inaction have ramifications. And if we want our children to have a better future, this is going back to answering the original question. I want to create a community where, or I want to advocate for my community where we're not left behind as Florida continues to progress, or we're not disenfranchised with the regressive laws that are being introduced and passed. So historically, we know that Black and brown communities, or communities with low socioeconomic citizens, are the ones that bear the brunt of these discriminatory practices. And so like I said, I was trying to avoid this path and running for public office, and just staying on the fringes, volunteerism with the different organizations that I've always been committed to. But I had a moment of like, well, what if one of my ancestors was like, no, that's not for me, or I don't want to do that because it might inconvenience me. Like, how would that have impacted me now? And do I owe them the audacity that they have given me, right? So, I think that honoring our ancestors' audacity, they had the audacity to learn when it was a punishable by death offense. They had the audacity to own land, to advocate for voting, to march, to fight, to do all these things for me to sit in my comfort and be like, no, I don't want to do that. I still want to go out with, and with my sweats on at Target. Like, really, Ashley? And so when I watched the legislative session and I saw some of the votes that the current representative cast, I was like, nah, no. Like, I can be a social media, advocate and be like, this is wrong behind my keyboard while I'm eating some chips watching Netflix, or I can take on this monumental task because whew, it's a lot.
It is a lot, but I want to drill down a little bit more. What were some of the votes that were cast by the incumbent that were so disturbing to you?
So the vote that got my attention, that really made me say, make some phone calls and say, hey, this is really on the plate for me now, was the abortion ban. That was the first vote. And then the next vote was the Don't Say Gay bill. Like, as a former teacher, the bill doesn't even make sense because it didn't exist anyway. It's
Thank you. Thank
like
you. Thank
that didn't exist anyway. Like, it was not allowed. It was not a practice. I'm just like, this makes no sense. And for people who are not involved, they're just like, oh my gosh, yes, or oh, this and this and this. It's like, no, we have ridiculous housing crisis going on that could have been addressed. Was it addressed? No, it wasn't. Homeowners insurance that are pricing homeowners out, was that addressed? No, it wasn't addressed. Funding, providing adequate funding for public education for our teachers. The pandemic has brought different challenges for teachers
Mhm.
that is unprecedented. Like, it's unheard of. My cousin is a teacher, and she, when they went virtual, her two oldest kids were on their iPads in their respective places on their Zoom. She was in on their computer in the living room on Zoom with her students, and then she still had two littles that were not, school age children. So when we think about all the pressures that families have been dealing with over the last 2 years, and how there has not been an adequate response to dealing with the pandemic, aside from saying it doesn't exist when it does, because I personally know many people who have loved ones who have passed away from COVID. Like, I just couldn't sit back and not do something. And when it comes to reproductive rights, I don't. I you know the fact that this abortion ban has no exception for rape or incest,
Mm,
um
mm,
and knowing what situations some of my students were in that required them to be removed from their home for various reasons of being violated. And as a teacher, I knew something may have been off, right? And eventually they would tell me, but what if that was past the 15 weeks and they didn't tell anyone? Will my middle school child be required to bring a pregnancy to term from her rapist? And let's not even talk about how there is not a single law that legislates what a man can and cannot do with his body. Like, that's a
that
whole
part.
other conversation, you know?
Mm,
So I'm
mm.
just like,
Or to deal with the by the way, I have to pause here because this week is Black Maternal Health Week.
right.
This week, and you think about the fact that Black women are 3 times more likely to die in childbirth than their white counterparts, right?
Mhm.
And how about some bills around that? But
Right.
instead, they just want to, okay, let's end abortion in Florida, and on the flip side, have no provisions to make sure that women can give birth safely and
Yeah.
that this isn't a fatal event, right? So the hypocrisy is just mind-boggling.
It
But
is.
anyway,
It
continue.
is. And let's talk about access to healthcare, giving more Floridians access to healthcare, because, like, when you talk about expanding Medicaid, right? You have people who price out, like, you make too much money, but they can't afford to pay for healthcare on their own because they make too little money. And so you have this tremendously large amount of Floridians who don't have access to healthcare. Why in Florida, when we have, I think there's a $28 billion surplus over the pandemic? Don't quote me on that number because I might be wrong, but I know there was a surplus in income and revenue for Florida. Why aren't we providing these things that allow Floridians to live in a state and have access to healthcare, have quality education for their children. Like, what vision is it for the state in 20-25 years,
Mhm.
when a
It's
lot of these people won't be in office, when these children now will be adults and they have to navigate a system? Like, I'm a true millennial, and we have had so many unprecedented circumstances from
yeah.
the time we, like, in high school. It started with 9/11, and it just continued to go until now. We're like, it's par for the course now. We have a
Mhm.
pandemic, but like, it's a very real conversation with us not being able to afford. Like, a lot of people I know are still renters.
Right.
Like, what is happening with affordability of homes? You see, the pricing is just outrageous. Like, Miami-Dade County just declared a state of emergency for housing,
Yeah.
and we're providing rental assistance to residents. Like, these type of things, what's going on? Where are the priorities? And so I was like, all right, well, I could talk a good talk on social media, but what, I'm a doer. And sometimes, I do the most.
Yeah. And running for office is definitely the most. So your top focuses are affordable housing, making sure that we've got a solid educational system, and also making sure that people have access to healthcare, which is definitely a huge struggle. But I want to bring it back to this. When is the actual election?
The
Because
actual election is August 23rd. So my district is District 109. And I am hoping that I get the community support. I will definitely be out in the community. I think living and growing up there is, knowing the community in one way, but running for office to represent the community is a very different experience. And so I want to meet people. I want to talk to people. I want to listen. And so my first event where the community is invited is this Friday for Good Friday. So we know Easter is on Sunday. So I am actually having a fish fry at the Urban in Overtown. So
oh,
we're gonna have we're going to be frying up some fish, so you can come and get some fish and talk to me, because, I recognize that there are unique challenges to my community. Like, being a small business owner now, I see entrepreneurship completely different. How are we giving my community members access to grants, to mentoring with corporations, to
mhm.
create solid company plans or business plans? Or how do we encourage that growth? How are we providing for the nonprofits that are already in the community for them to continue doing the work that they're doing? Because there's some great nonprofits in the community that are literally doing God's work. How are we providing more access to mental health care? All of these things that I am very passionate about, that I've been doing on my own, in my, in the various organizations that I volunteer with. Like, this is what I want to address as the next state representative. And I don't believe that that's happening right now. And I think that, our community deserves representation. Our community deserves, you know, to be to have someone who's advocating for them, to understand, because I don't want us to be left behind as, Miami continues to progress. Because when I look at Miami, first of all, when I was growing up, there was no Midtown in Miami. Okay.
Yeah, that part.
So, just seeing, how, like, Edgewater, all these different communities, and that's great. But, like, how are we benefiting from the growth?
Mhm.
Are we going to be pushed out because we're priced out? Or what kind of money and funding are we providing to our community? Like, that's what needs to be addressed. That's what needs to be advocated for. And I think that does require not just the ability to work with people from across the aisle, right? You can do that without sacrificing representing your district. It also requires and demands creative thinking, understanding how to work within the system and still expand your opportunities. And as a lawyer, especially as a trial lawyer, you have to
Be creative.
communicate and be creative, right? Because you don't know who is on that jury or who's in that jury panel. And when you pick the jury members, you have to, effectively convey your point of view, so that your the facts as you state, they understand and they agree.
Mhm.
And so, I'm this is a lot. I'm on a steep learning curve because, like I said, the election is August 23rd, and learning this world has been very different, but I'm very grateful for the team that I have, because they are patient with me. Okay.
Listen, I mean, being a first-time candidate is nothing easy. I can tell you, and having a good team around you is super important. And, again, it's just about making sure that you're authentic and you're true to your values and what you believe. Because
Right.
too many times people will say anything on the campaign trail to get in, and once they're in, it's a quick 360, right? Or they just forget about the community and just are very happy to be included or be in the in crowd up there and not be fighting
Right.
for the people who
Right.
need them back home. So I think that's huge. But let's make sure everybody knows how to find you. So first of all, we know there's a fish fry at the Urban in Overtown this Friday. What
Yes.
time is the event?
Okay, the event is from 4 to 6 p.m. and I'm looking at the flyer right now. So the flyer is, well, the event is Friday, April 15th. It's the day after my birthday. My birthday's on Thursday,
Woo!
the 13th, y'all. It is from 4 to 6 p.m. and there is an Eventbrite link to register. So you can find me on Facebook at Gantt for Florida, Ashley Gantt for state representative, but you could do like the @ Gantt, GANTTFOR Florida. You can also find me at Gantt for Florida on Instagram, and on Twitter, Gantt the number 4 Florida. And it's posted on all of them.
Perfect. And your
And
website?
my website. My website is so easy, y'all. You can just go to the URL and put Ashley, ASHLEY.vote. That's it.
Woo! Love it, love it, love it, love it. So we have so much, going on here. The campaign is off in a full swing. I am loving all that you're doing. I, of course, will be there on Friday to, number one, celebrate your birthday, but number two, make sure that the event is well attended. I really encourage everyone to come out and get to know Ashley, because she is really bringing a fresh perspective. And, I'm going to get personal for a second. I can't even tell you how many
Don't make me
times
cry, Melba. Okay.
I'm going to try, but I can't tell you how many times people have said to me, and they're not always people of our complexion, but sometimes it's people of my complexion who say, you need to wait your turn. You need to wait your turn. And that this is so-and-so seat. So you need to wait your turn. I don't subscribe to that. I'm all about what is right and what is right for the people and fighting for the people. And if the person sitting in there is not fighting for the people, they need to be put out, because you know what? It's a job. The same way if you work at Walmart and you're not showing up on time and doing what your boss needs you to do, you're out of a job. It's the same way when we elect people into office. If they are not doing what the community needs, they need to be voted out. So I really want to center that, because I think in the political circles, there's this feeling of entitlement that, I'm entitled to this seat and I get to keep it till the Lord calls me home, right? And, listen, if you're delivering for the community every single day, all the time, so be it. But I think there's so many folks out there, especially in the old guard, that is trying to shut down and prevent young folks from really coming up, getting that experience, instead of turning back and mentoring them and grooming the next generation. And I mean, groom in a positive sense, because we've heard that term thrown around in some very nasty ways in the last year. Not what I'm talking about, but grooming the next generation so that we don't have a succession problem, right? Because that's why, and very thankful for President Biden, but that's kind of how we ended up in that situation, because there was no Barack Obama that was already ready to run for president, right? So we have to learn from those past mistakes and make sure that we're encouraging and supporting young progressive candidates when they come out and literally put their lives on hold to run for office. So
Yes.
it's in that spirit, number one, that I support you. Number two, I'm proud to endorse you. And I will do everything that I can to get the word out about you because, again, I know you, I know your character, and I know that you are about that life. You are about making sure that our community heals, is whole, and has what it needs. So thank you for all that you're doing. Tell everybody that website again.
My website is ashley.vote. So you can put in www.ashley.vote.
And make sure after you check it out, learn more about her. Please donate if you can, because let me tell you something, campaigns are not free. And I know I'd be saying that every week because it's true. They still haven't turned free. Okay.
Right.
It's expensive to campaign and run for office. And if you want, again, if you want to see educators in Tallahassee making decisions and giving input on bills having to do with education, the only way to do that is to donate and support. If you are not in a position where you can afford to donate, even though $10, $25, anything helps, sign up to volunteer. Sign up to knock doors. Get educated about the candidates, especially Ashley, and share that with your friends and family. So those are the types of ways that you can get engaged. But if you really can do any little bit, please try and donate. And with that, thank you, Ashley, for joining me on Mondays with Melba. I will see you and hopefully all of you on Friday in Overtown at the Urban. Take good care, y'all.
Bye.